Okay, so now we're going to have a look at mastering. So we can do some organization of the track, put everything to a kind of stereo bus, so we can add some parallel compression potentially to the mix as well, the whole mix together. And we're going to do some little nips and tucks in the frequency range to try and get it as balanced as possible, and then apply some mastering plugins to get it up to the required level. So let's dive in. Okay, so let's first of all get everything organized. So we've got all our drums going to bus 1, which is here. We'll call that drum bus. And then we have reflections, verbs. Then we have drum, call it NY, which is New York compression, that's what that stands for. Bass, NY, or bass NY. Bass, then we have effects, NY, synth, NY, and Vox, NY. Okay, so then we can take all of these channels and send them to a master here. Now what we could actually do first is something like this. So let's put the bass, let's put the bass to the drum bus. Okay, and then let's put the synth, let's just have a little think about this. We'll send the synth to its own bus, the effects to their own bus, and the vocals to another bus. Okay, so we have, what's this? So this is the drums, drum bus. And we have, that was the synth bus. And then effects. And then Vox. Okay, so that now means we should have everything going through those buses, but let me just route my parallel chains differently. So I'm going to put the reverbs through the drum bus. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Drums can go through the drum bus. Bass will go through the drum bus. It's already there. The effects will go through the effects bus. This is the effects parallel channel. Okay, the synth is going through parallel channel, going through the synth bus, and then parallel vocals going through the vocal bus. So what I'm trying to get at, so that was a bit of a long-winded way of doing it, but so I've got the drums going to their own bus here, and I'm sending that to another bus, which is the drum bus here. I probably actually could have just used that one, but I've done it now, so that's fine. They're all in the same place, so it's a bit easier. The early reflections and reverbs, I'm also going through the drum bus, and you can see here that the bass is going through the drum bus. The effects stem is going through the effects bus. Synth stem is going through the synth bus, and the vocal stem going through the vocal bus. So what I'm trying to get at is that each individual sound is going to its respective bus, and all the parallel chains that those sounds are going through are also going to the same bus. So we should be able to mute these, and we have silence. Okay, and we should be able to say, here's just the drums and the bass. Here's just the little synth stab. Here's just the effects. And here's just the vocals. and all their parallel chains going through as well. So we now have a way of being able to further process the bus to get a little bit of extra groove and kind of vibe out. So what we could do actually, let's try this. Let's try using the same compressor for each one. So let's try, you know what, I'm just going to use the Logic compressor because it's got a nice SSL mode. And where is it? Classic VCA, no, Vintage VCA is like an SSL compressor. And I don't want to use too much CPU because I want to do everything in one project. I know I have a very powerful Mac Pro. When you start using a lot of the kind of Waves SSL plugins and tape saturation, things like that, you do end up running out of processing even so. So I'm going to keep some processing back. So let's have a look at this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 30 milliseconds attack for this, and then what did we have for our drums? What was the setting? I think we've got it on here. Release was 60, so we'll do a 60 seconds release for the drum bus. So we're basically mimicking the same processing we had on each channel. Bit of makeup gain. Let's try making the knee harder. Now we could make this respond a little bit less to the kick, a little bit more to the other elements if we wanted to. Yeah. Bit more groovy, bit less flat, a bit more depth, I'd say so. So that was the drums and the bass. And then we could just recreate the same 60, 30, yes, we've got the same thing here for the synth. So I'm just trying to mimic the same settings we've had on each individual channel, because there's no point in now changing the groove of the sounds by using different release times. It doesn't really make sense. So what I do want to do is use the same compressor for each one, because we're trying to create a kind of a tone to it, I suppose. By having the same compressor, we get a kind of uniformity to things. It also helps glue things together a little bit as well and make them feel like they're a kind of a unified part. So what do we have here? 487. This is the effect stem. So attack will go to 3. 480. This is a hard one because there's different sounds on there, so we might have to use a very light ratio to get a bit of kind of uniformity to the compression. So a little bit more alive with the parallel chaining. Vocal stem, we had 11 seconds. I'm not sure why I had it at 11 seconds. I'll just make that 10 or 200. 10. And then what was I looking at for release time was 100. Let's call it 180. Let's try a different part of the track because we have been listening to that part a lot. It's actually a good part to work on because it's kind of the busiest part of the track.
So it's about how.
A bit more depth. A bit more forward. Bigger sounding. Okay, cool. So that's some quite nice processing for our individual channels. Sorry, our buses for our individual channels. So let's have a look at this now. So in terms of being ready to master, we're hitting around -5. I can't remember what my level was at the beginning when I did the gain staging, but perfect amount really. Got like plenty of headroom to work with, so everything's nice and level. I haven't got any crazy peaks, so it's ready to master for sure. I'm going to put on Ozone 9 because I like to use the reference tool here. Now I'm going to load in the track, which I have here, which is a pre-master of the track. It's just this is always a bit scary because now as you find out whether you've ruined it. But it also means because basically we're treating this as a mix down, straight mastering job. So really, it's arrogant to ignore the original track, and we'll call this the rough mix, although it's not really the rough, it was the pre-master. But the artists have spent a long time making it the way they want it to sound, so you need to make sure you're making it a better version of what they want. Or maybe you're making it a new version, but that's risky, and if you're putting a lot of your own stamp on it, they might love it and that's great, but a lot of the time they just want a better version of what they've spent hours meticulously crafting. So we need to make sure, especially with a track like this where it's a club tech house track, so it's going to need to sound a certain way. We need to make sure we're kind of in the right place. So this is a good point to do this, to make sure if we need to tweak anything, we do it before we go for the master. So this is where I can flick to the reference. We need to gain match. Might be in a different place game-wise. What you're listening for is what I've been trying to do at every single point and stage of this process is open the mix out. So to make it kind of taller and wider, so the bass feels lower, the tops feel higher, it stretches out. I've heard it described as escaping the speakers. So I want to make it feel like it's bigger than the speakers, it's kind of coming out, and it occupies a bigger area, bigger space, and I feel like it does. That to me feels a bit more boxed in, and the new mix sound, I feel like, does it open up when I press that button? But there's a part, I think it's this hat part, I think this needs to come up. It feels a bit too low in my mix. Maybe vocals a little bit loud. yeah, I'm happy that I've improved it. So that's a good sign.